Chapter 1. The Station of Awakening. The darkness was not an absence of light, but a presence of its own. It was a heavy, velvet weight that pressed against her skin, stifling and absolute. The girl floated in the center of this nothingness, a speck of consciousness in a sea of void. There were no stars, no horizon, and no memories to anchor her to the person she used to be. She was a blank page, waiting for the first drop of ink. Then a spark. A thin ribbon of light unspooled beneath her feet, stitching itself into a path that glowed with a soft, ethereal hum. At the end of the path sat a circular platform of stained glass, suspended in the abyss. As she stepped onto it, the glass chimed like a bell. The mosaic beneath her feet depicted a woman fair-skinned, with hair as black as ebony, sleeping amidst a circle of 7 hooded figures. In the background of the glass, a golden castle reached for a sun that was being eclipsed by a dark, swirling storm. The girl looked down at her hands. They were pale, trembling. As her toes touched the center of the glass, a flood of fragmented images tore through her mind. A biting wind, the scent of pine and iron, a mirror that spoke in a voice like grinding stones, a red apple gleaming with a waxy, poisonous perfection. "Oh," she whispered. Her voice felt like a relic, a sound she hadn't used in a lifetime. The silence of the void was suddenly broken by a sound like tearing paper. From the edges of the platform, the shadows began to liquefy. They rose from the glass, twitching and jerky. Small, ink-black creatures with large, glowing yellow eyes and curling antennas emerged from the floor. Heartless. The name vibrated in her mind, though she didn't know where the word came from. They circled her, their claws scraping against the stained glass, with a shrill, metallic screech. She felt a surge of cold terror, but beneath it, a dormant instinct stirred. She didn't have a shield. She didn't have a sword. But as the first creature lunged, her hand reached out into the empty air. Light exploded from her palm. In a flash of gold and crimson, a weapon materialized. It was heavy, yet perfectly balanced. The hilt was a dark, twisted metal that resembled gnarled roots, and the blade was a sleek, black shaft ending in a jagged, crystalline teeth. Hanging from the pommel was a small silver charm in the shape of a bitten apple. It was a Keyblade. She didn't think. She moved. The weapon was an extension of her soul. She swung in a wide arc, the blade whistling through the air. Each strike left a trail of white sparks. The creatures didn't bleed. They simply evaporated into puffs of black smoke when the blade touched them. She fought with a grace she didn't remember learning. A dance of steel and light. When the last creature vanished, the platform began to crack. The stained glass shattered, and the girl fell into a blinding white light. Cold. That was the first sensation that returned to her. A biting, honest cold that stung her lungs. The girl opened her eyes to see a gray sky choked with heavy clouds. She was lying in a bed of dead leaves at the base of an ancient, gnarled oak tree. The forest was dense, the trees leaning inward, as if they were whispering secrets to one another. The Keyblade was gone. The void was gone. She stood up, her legs feeling like lead. She looked at her reflection in a frozen puddle nearby. Her skin was brown, her hair a messy pitch of white, almost like snow, and her eyes were a piercing crimson red. She looked like a ghost haunting her own life. "Black Snow," she whispered. She didn't know if it was her name or a description of the world around her, but the words felt right. In the distance, visible through a break in the trees, a massive fortress stood atop a jagged cliff. Its spires were tall and sharp, like needles stitching the earth to the sky. A feeling of dread and an undeniable pull of destiny tugged at her chest. She began to walk. The forest grew stranger the deeper she went. The trees weren't just old. They were distorted. Their bark looked like stretched skin, and their branches reached out like skeletal fingers. The air grew thick with a rot-like smell. The ground suddenly heaved. A massive root, thick as a man's waist, and covered in pulsing purple veins, burst from the soil in front of her. Then another. The very ground seemed to liquefy as a monstrous entity rose from the earth. It was a tree heartless, a towering mass of corrupted wood and shadow. Its face was a hollowed-out knot in the trunk, glowing with that same malevolent yellow light she had seen in the void. The girl stumbled back, her heart hammering against her ribs. She reached for the air, her fingers curling, trying to summon the light. Nothing. The Keyblade didn't appear. The creature roared, a sound of groaning timber, and swung a massive branch. The girl dived to the side, the impact shaking the very ground. She scrambled to her feet, desperate. She grabbed a fallen branch from the ground, trying to use it as a club, but the Heartless smashed it to splinters with a single blow. She was pushed back against the trunk of a dying tree. The monster loomed over her, its shadow swallowing her whole. Why won't it come back, she wondered, her breath hitching. Was the dream just a lie? The tree Heartless raised both its massive limbs for a final, crushing blow. In that moment of absolute terror, Black Snow stopped looking for the weapon. Instead, she looked inside, herself. She remembered the feeling of the void, the weight of her own emptiness. She realized the Keyblade didn't come from the light above, but from the strength she held against the dark. "I'm here," she snarled, her voice gaining a sudden, terrifying edge. "And I'm not going back to the dark." At the flick of her wrist, a shockwave of crimson energy rippled through the clearing. The Keyblade didn't just appear, it erupted. The weapon hummed with a violent, protective energy. Black Snow didn't wait for the monster to strike. She leaped, her feet finding purchase on the creature's gnarled trunk. She climbed it like a predator, her blade glowing with a fierce silver light. With a cry of defiance, she drove the Keyblade deep into the creature's glowing eye knot. A sound like 1,000 breaking mirrors echoed through the forest. The tree Heartless stiffened, its purple veins turning a brilliant, blinding gold. Then it shattered. The explosion sends a wave of pure light through the woods, momentarily clearing the gloom. As the dust settled, the silence returned. But it was a different kind of silence. It was the silence of a battlefield after the victory. Black Snow stood in the center of a circle of ash, breathing hard. She looked at the Keyblade in her hand. The apple charm swayed gently, catching the dim light of the gray afternoon. She still had no memories. She still had no map, but she had a weapon, and she had a direction. She turned her gaze back toward the castle on the cliff. "I'm coming," she said to the wind. Then she stepped forward into the unknown.